All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a question that sounds super simple, but is actually packed with history, politics, and a whole lot of meaning. And that question is, what exactly is heritage?
Okay, so take a look at these two places. On your left, you've got the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, this absolutely colossal living ecosystem stretching for over 2,000 kilometers. And on the right, a pretty standard-looking 14-room house in Missouri. It's the old home of U.S. President Harry S. Truman. I mean, really? A massive natural wonder and a suburban house. They could not seem more different, right? And yet, they have one huge thing in common. Both are officially considered World Heritage. So, how is that even possible? Well, that's exactly what we're here to figure out.
To get that answer, we've got to build a solid foundation first. We need to get past those postcard images of ancient ruins and really dig into what heritage means.
So, at its absolute core, heritage is all about what we inherit. It's the stuff. And not just stuff, but also practices that we, as a society, decide is so important, so valuable, that it just has to be protected and passed on. But as you're about to see, it gets a lot more complicated from here.
Right off the bat, here's a crucial point. Heritage is not just about things you can touch. We have what's called tangible heritage, the physical stuff like buildings, artifacts, old books. But there's also intangible heritage, the living, breathing practices like languages, songs, and traditions that are passed from one person to another.
And this brings us right back to our first two images. It perfectly illustrates another key split. You've got natural heritage, like the Great Barrier Reef, which exists without any help from us. And then there's cultural heritage, like the Truman home, which is 100% human-made. It's all the things we create that reflect who we are.
And when we talk about that intangible cultural side of things, the scope is just massive. UNESCO recognizes everything from storytelling and festivals to food traditions and even traditional sports. See? Heritage isn't just locked away in some dusty museum. It's literally happening all around us.
So this brings us to a really critical question. If heritage can be pretty much anything, who gets to decide what becomes official heritage? The stuff that gets global recognition and protection.
Let's start with a number. As of October 2024, that's how many sites are on the official UNESCO World Heritage List. It's this enormous, globally recognized canon, like a greatest hits list, of the world's most important places.
Now, when we break that number down, something really interesting pops out. As you can see, there's this overwhelming focus on cultural sites, the things that humans have built. And that alone tells you a lot about what the official process tends to care about most.
And that's because these lists aren't just random. They are carefully curated canons. Think of it like a Hall of Fame. It's governments and experts who decide what gets in. And by doing that, they're promoting a very specific set of values about what part of history is worth remembering.
So let's go back to that house in Missouri. Look, this building isn't on a global list because of its amazing architecture or its ancient history. It's considered heritage purely because of its connection to power, to a president. Its value isn't in the bricks, it's assigned to it because of who lived there.
So far, this all seems pretty straightforward, right? But now, we're about to take a sharp turn. Let's look at what some critics say is really going on when we talk about heritage.
Is it really just an objective process of identifying important stuff from the past? Or is there something else at play here?
This idea from the historian David Lowenthal is an absolute game changer. He argues that heritage is not the same as history. Let me say that again. Heritage is not history. History is an inquiry. It's about investigating. Heritage, he says, is a celebration. It's about repackaging the past to serve a purpose we have right now, today.
And then we get this bombshell from archaeologist Laura Jane Smith. There is, really, no such thing as heritage. Whoa! Now what on earth does she mean by that? She's not saying these places don't exist. She's arguing that the quality of heritage isn't something a place is just born with. That value is assigned to it by people, for very specific reasons.
Smith calls this powerful, official way of thinking the Authorized Heritage Discourse, or AHD for short. It's basically the top-down set of ideas pushed by experts and governments that treats heritage like this fixed, untouchable truth that we just have to discover.
And this so-called AHD has a very specific playbook. First, it focuses on big, beautiful, monumental things. It says that only the pros, the architects, the archaeologists can really understand it.
It often promotes the values of the elite, and it treats heritage as something neatly contained within the walls of a site, assuming its value is just sitting there, waiting for an expert to find it. Okay, so if that official, top-down way of looking at heritage is so narrow, how do we push back? Let's look at two different ways. First up, how technology is completely changing the game.
This is the basic idea behind what we call digital heritage. We use amazing tech to capture physical sites and artifacts and turn them into digital data. This doesn't just save them from falling apart over time, it can make them accessible to literally everyone, breaking them out of the exclusive control of experts and institutions.
And we get to experience this digital heritage through incredible technologies that are becoming pretty common. With augmented reality, you could point your phone at a ruin and see it rebuilt right there on your screen. With virtual reality, you can pop on a headset and walk through a simulation of an ancient city that doesn't even exist anymore. It's a totally revolutionary way to connect with the past, on your own terms.
But technology is only one piece of the puzzle. There's another, deeply human alternative to that top-down, official view of heritage.
And this gives us a totally different picture. Instead of being some static object preserved by experts, heritage can be a bottom-up social action. Think about local traditions, festivals, community events. The buildings might just be the backdrop. The real heritage is the living event itself, the thing that brings people together year after year, creating community and identity.
So, in the end, it really comes down to this. Those official canons, the World Heritage Lists, they tell one powerful and very important story. But it is not the only story. Heritage is also personal. It's local. It's the living traditions that we perform and pass on. So while the official lists tell one story, the bigger question is, what story does your heritage tell?